Hi and welcome to Matrix Moments. This is Saloni and we're back with Sudipto, who is Principal and Lead for the B2B sector at Matrix Partners India. Today we're going to be talking about the recent boom in manufacturing in India. So Sudipto, we've seen there's obviously been a lot of buzz and talk around Make in India. And there's obviously been the recent explosion of manufacturing in India. So how much of this is real? Why now? And what are the tailwinds that you're seeing that are significantly contributing to this boom?
Thank you, Saloni. I think manufacturing for any economy is right a key pillar for the economy's growth. And the great thing about India is that the time for Indian manufacturing is finally here. First, let's talk macro, right? What are the macro tailwinds for manufacturing? I think we've all spoken about GST, demonetization, UPI, which has sort of digitized Indian manufacturing. So that's a little bit on digitization. But any sector grows when there is significantly more demand. Where is demand for India manufacturing coming from? So there are actually three areas. First, if you look at what has happened in the last 2 years, we have seen COVID, we have seen most countries globally wanting a China plus one strategy. We have seen India focusing a lot more on Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means you build Indian products in India.
Correct.
And now with the Russia-Ukraine crisis, you can clearly see people realizing that for all sort of key products that the country needs, energy as well as products and commodities, the country should be self-reliant.
Absolutely.
And all of these things together has led to sort of two things. First, India wants more and more manufacturing to happen in India and be less and less reliant for exports, especially in finished goods, where we don't have the raw material, we have to anyways sort of import. But for everywhere else, we should not depend on EXIM, we should not depend on imports, we should actually build India. So first, focus on domestic production for goods that can be produced in India. Second, with China plus one strategy, globally, sort of all economies, especially the West, are looking for alternate countries from where they can source the same product or raw material, right? If you do China plus one, and if you see which is the other English speaking sort of large country with a labor force, lot of raw materials, technology, there are only 3-4 areas, 3-4 countries, and those are all in Southeast Asia, and one of them being India. So globally, there is a lot more focus on now importing from India, which is India's exports and their imports, right? And if you see, now Foxconn has set up a factory, Apple factory in India for the first time. So globally, people are focusing a lot on India manufacturing. And the third, overall, as the country's GDP increases and the disposable income and the consumption power of Indian citizens increase, right? You will anyways have more domestic needs and demand. So it's a combination of reducing imports and being dependent on India internally, globally people wanting more from India and Indian exports increasing, and third, the Indian GDP and consumer spend increasing. All three together is now leading to truly manufacturing in India exploding. So that's the explosion in manufacturing, and along with all the other digitization tailwinds, this explosion is also coupled with digital manufacturing and the manufacturers trusting digital marketplaces for the first time.
Sure. So I think while this sounds, I mean, this makes sense in theory, but what would you say is like the real on-ground impact that you're seeing, whether on a daily or if that's too small or narrow, on a monthly or quarterly basis?
Done. So let me give you an anecdote, right? I have been investing in B2B, agri and supply chains for 6 years now. When I joined Matrix in 2016, I remember I used to go on field visits. So I love going on field visits with founders and seeing factories and farms and learning a lot in the process. So when I used to do it in 16, 17, you would go to a factory, the factory will have one sort of computer in the corner, and when you go with the founder, somebody will say, "Arey, we have to show technology," and they will say, "Call this guy." Some guy will come running, open the desktop and say, "Sir, देखो यहाँ पे entry होती है, ऐसे हम tech use करते हैं." Which was clearly that there's a computer, there's some tech, but in reality, nothing was happening. Today, when you go to field visits, everybody is on their phone. They are scanning products, they are uploading those products which are getting sold on marketplaces, reconciliation is happening, GST is happening. Everybody is using tech. It's not like there's one designated computer and one guy across 5 factories who knows tech. So technology is clear. Second, see the results and the GMV growth of multiple different companies in manufacturing, right? Obviously, we have off business and business, which are
Of
our own
course.
portfolio company, but there are a bunch of other really great companies which have come out in the India ecosystem the last 3-4 years. All of them have been growing, which is your second data point, right? Third, if you look at industries, for example, take specialty chemicals. Obviously, first their stocks are doing really, really well. Part of the reason is boom in manufacturing as well as sort of boom in exports. But also, uh, if you look at these companies, right, a lot of these companies are spending in capex in advance of demand. So people are anticipating that more and more demand will come to India because of the geopolitical scenario, and they're putting factories today even before demand is coming. So this is actually real. The more you go on the ground and meet with people, it is very clear that manufacturing is booming, and that is more and more capital and focus is going into manufacturing in India.
Got it. What would you say are some of the opportunities or the areas that we as in Matrix and you are really looking to go deeper in terms of investments?
Sure. So as with all B2B supply chains, right, you have a finished goods supply chain and you have a raw material supply chain. What is finished good? Your clothes and shoes are finished goods. The yarn for that is raw material. Your soap is finished goods. The chemical is the raw material. Your biscuit is the finished good. The raw material, the grains and sort of sweeteners that you add in the biscuit is the raw material, right? If I looked at finished goods supply chains, and we recently did a perishable supply chain, right?
Exactly.
If you look at finished goods and what comes from manufacturing, it is broadly all your lifestyle categories, which is fashion, footwear, accessories, all your electronics categories like smartphones, your desktops, laptops, and stuff like that. Then you have pharma, you have FMCG, and stuff like that. As we discussed in earlier episodes, we only like verticals where your supply is fragmented and unbranded. If you take that lens, the categories where we would like to invest are lifestyle categories, which is fashion, footwear, accessories, and a little bit of home decor. Everywhere else, for example, if you take FMCG or electronics,
Right.
your supply is consolidated, so those are not verticals we are super interested in.
Sure.
So we are obviously investors in business, but we would also love to make a few more investments in the home decor side of
Sure,
things. So that's
sure.
on finished goods. On raw material, I think there are a lot of opportunities. There are opportunities, for example, in raw material in chemicals. There is opportunity in raw material in yarn. So that is the second set of opportunity. And third is obviously in exports. There have been a lot of companies in contract manufacturing, but very few companies have actually built sort of export distribution businesses, which is take products from India, create a private label, sell globally. And I think there are opportunities there as well. So categories: lifestyle, home decor, in raw material, in finished goods, more chemicals, yarn, kind of raw materials, and obviously we would love to see more companies exporting out of India, building their own private labels and brands, and then selling to the world audience.
Got it. So can you tell us a little bit about business as well as off business and how both of these companies fit into the overall larger scheme of the manufacturing space?
So spoken about business, which is in finished goods. Off business is more in raw materials, and then they are in raw material commodities. So they do, for example, for real estate and construction, they will be doing steel and cement and bitumen. For agri, they will be doing agri products. They also do bulk chemicals. So they are more in the raw material scheme of things, right? I think the key thing to learn again here is both these companies, if you go and meet and if you see their org and DNA, manufacturing is a very different business to build. You need manufacturers or people with a deep understanding of the manufacturing landscape to go and build it. So they have always been, and especially business, been factory first. You focus on who is the manufacturer, who is the factory, and it again goes back to supply. How can you solve and standardize supply? With off business, understanding who is that SME, what is his or her credit underwriting needs, understanding that they are price sensitive, building a very strong commercial business for them, right? And once you've got an entry into one client, providing multiple different solutions to them. So I think the key learning for us, and there are a lot of open spaces in manufacturing, is understand your customer really well, and the customer here is the manufacturer. So go deep into their psyche, understand the customer, build your org who empathizes with the manufacturer, wants to spend time with them, and then there are enough number of magic opportunities lying for you in manufacturing.
So what are some of the emerging areas that you're looking at, and do you see more exciting opportunities within this space?
So, till now, let's quickly recap, right? We have said manufacturing is booming, people are putting in capex, the factories are getting digitized, and there are a lot of vertical supply chains where value can be created. Finished goods, raw material, exports. Now, if all of this becomes true, right, and in the next 10 to 12 years, there's so many factories becoming large and companies getting larger. What do you need? First, you need technology for sort of factories and manufacturers to scale, which means Industry 4.0. Can you have IoT devices that monitor machines? Can you have operating systems to run the machines and factories, right? So the entire tech, tool, SaaS, IoT for the manufacturer and the factory becomes super exciting for us. So that's an area, as manufacturing booms, Industry 4.0 and SaaS for manufacturing will boom. Second is logistics. Your manufacturing is booming, you are doing cross-border, you are essentially transporting goods from small towns to large cities to small towns. We have a very strong, robust logistics and supply chain infrastructure for B2C, but there's a lot to be built in B2B, especially if I think more rural logistics and I think of cross-border international logistics. So as B2B booms, I think these two are very interesting areas where we can see a lot of value creation happening.
So we just spoke about exports and the China Plus One strategy. You mentioned that in one of your responses earlier. But how do you think that Indian exporters can actually rise up to this challenge?
Fair point, certainly. I think there's an opportunity, but obviously you have to grab the opportunity with both hands. I think if I'm looking from an importer's lens, right, somebody sitting in the US and West, what they want most, more than even price from India, is trust and quality. So they are looking at whatever promise that they have in terms of the products that they're seeing on the website or the sample that they're seeing, the same quality product comes to them. So is quality great? A, does India have the capability to produce great quality products? And B, is the quality consistent that they can trust? And 3, whether that will be delivered on time. Okay. And then obviously there will also be considerations around regulations around, say, who are the people working in the factory, have all licenses been taken, is it ESG compliant, etc., right? And some of this as an ecosystem, as we mature, will get solved more and more. But the key is, can India at scale produce the quality to compete with everyone else in the world? India anyways has a labor arbitrage and a cost arbitrage that helps us, and in certain categories we also have raw materials, given we are a really large and vast country, right? But I think that's the major problem. And second is, how do you communicate? Can you build, for example, tools? If you are an exporter, you are talking to somebody in the US, right? Can you have a digital catalog that showcases your products beautifully? What is your tendering and quotation process? Once you have taken your order, what is the monitoring process by which they can see whether the order is happening, not happening on time? Then one post delivery and dispatch, how does the tracking and everything happen, right? So I think overall capability development, then ensuring consistent quality and building the trust, doing that on time, and giving that visibility and professionalism that will appeal the end customer to buy from India. And we have invested in 2 companies in the export-import space, not naming them because they're not disclosed yet, but both of them are solving some of these challenges very specifically.
Super interesting, Sudipto. Thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in. For more Matrix Moments episodes, you can head to www.matrixpartners.in/matrixmoments. You can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more updates.